You love her voice, you love her looks, blah, 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 blah. Let's hurry through this because it's been really rough for me. I have an elderly cat, Ella, who you know from my videos, and she's not been doing well lately. I've had computer problems. I recorded this already once, and it turned out so badly that I just had to pitch it and start over. So let's get through my notes for today. Before we start on the countdown to Superman again, I actually wanted to go over where we are in the process of the status of all the players in the field to just remind you about who they are and what they're publishing. So let me see what my notes say about that. That is Eastern Color was the first company to have a successful comic book, and they seem content to only publish that one successful comic book, Famous Funnies, either because they're satisfied with the sales or because the syndicates have reclaimed a lot of their strips and they haven't left Eastern with enough material for a second title. We don't really know. National, which has now essentially become Detective Comics, came next with the first company to go up to 2 monthly titles and now has three: More Fun Comics, New Adventure Comics, and now Detective Comics. Comics Magazine became Ultim and then became Centaur Comics, but each company has used the same strategy, flood the market with more titles than anyone else, using the Chesler Studio to generate tons of low-grade filler for those books. Centaur, wisely not wanting to wind up like their predecessors, has scaled back down to just four titles: Funny Pages, Funny Picture Stories, Star Comics, and Star Ranger, but they are still using all Chesler material right now. David McKay has two ongoing titles, Ace Comics and King Comics, but they also publish a third one-shot book every month that had no collective title at this time, but collectors call feature book today. Dell has the comics, the funnies, and popular comics. It's also worth mentioning here, though we aren't ever going to focus on it, as I consider it falling outside of the scope of this channel, but Dell has also produced magazines at this time that contain comic strips, but not primarily comic strips, a famous example being Mickey Mouse Magazine. United Features has just Tip Top Comics for now, and Newcomer Comic Favorites has feature Funnies for now. Okay, this time in the countdown to Superman, we're going to purposely overlook the better known features from these comic books. We'll be looking at the filler, the also rans, the stuff that fills the pages. Some of it has merit, some of it's actually good, and some of it I apologize in advance for. Number 34, Tip Top Comics number 23, How It Began. Comic book anthologies often had some kind of educational filler, and How It Began was actually one of the better ones. By the 1930s, the strip was on its second creator, it having been taken over by Paul Bardenier, I think I'm pronouncing that right, in 1931, and he continued it through to its end in 1939. It was a Sunday strip featured in many newspapers through the United Features Syndicate, and each Sunday it would get a half page to take a single word and then talk about the history of that word with illustrations. How It Began was getting 2 pages reprinted per issue of Tip Top Comics, and on this first page, the subject is a timely one for the United States: democracy. There's some really depressing news here about how it took the Greeks 300 years to overthrow oligarchy and 200 years to take down a tyrant, and we really need to move faster than that in the modern day. The bottom half of this page, I just moved my notes. How embarrassing. The bottom half of this page, instead of using the filler that was normally published along with How It Began, ran an advertisement here for the new title coming out soon from United Features. The second page is about the month of April, where the name came from, what kind of things generally happen in April, things associated with spring. These are generally as accurate as referring to an encyclopedia set would have been at the time. Wikipedia today still includes the same idea of where the word April comes from, but says the derivation of this name is uncertain. The bottom filler on this page, If You Want to Know, was also by Berdanier, often ran on the same Sunday pages, and is basically the same thing as the top feature. Number 33, Feature Funnies number 7. We're going to do a 2-for-1 this time and talk about Toddy and Flossie. Feature Funnies was still being published by Comic Favorites, the company that would someday soon be called Quality Comics, which is just as well because not everything was yet quality in Feature Funnies. Not every kid in comic strips was having adventures like Little Orphan Annie. Some were just living ordinary kid lives like Skippy and regular fellers. George Marco, again, pretty sure I have that right, was assisting on Skippy when in 1934 he was given the opportunity to create his own strip and decided to go with what he knew and made a character up like Skippy. Toddy is a little naughtier than Skippy was, sort of a Dennis the Menace before Dennis. Toddy ran in newspapers for 5 years and even briefly had a Sunday page, though that's not what gets reprinted here. Al Zaire was the creator of Flossie. It ran for just 2 years in newspapers before disappearing. Al's career was actually peaking earlier with The Wows, a strip that ran for 3 years, ending in 1933. By the end of 1941, he was just out of the comic strip field entirely. Now, Toddy and Flossie could virtually be the same character, just gender flipped, so it's interesting that they wound up sharing a page together in Feature Funnies. The page I just shared with you was a little blurry and hard to read, so let me summarize for you. Toddy overhears his father and another man laughing about how they used to get in trouble a lot when they were kids. When Toddy tries to join in and share what he just did that could get him in trouble, well, he still gets in trouble, and as he sits in the corner, the hypocrisy of it seems to sting young Toddy. In Flossie's strip, she confounds a man who will give you a box of chocolates if he guesses your weight and gets it wrong, but she does this by eating the entire box of chocolates each time and gaining more weight to throw off his guesses. It's pretty clear that Zaire didn't have kids and didn't understand how children's metabolism works, because a box of chocolates is not going to do anything to those little calorie burners. The Toddy strip is, at least if not laugh out loud, funny, charming, and clever, and really better than Flossie was. Number 32. Ace Comics number 13. Pussycat Princess. Yes, that was a real comic strip. It's virtually forgotten today, but it ran in newspapers from 1935 to 1947, a not terrible 12-year run. Its main claim to fame, if it can be called that, is that the original artist was Grace Drayton, the creator of the Campbell Kids. That didn't last long, though, because Grace died of a heart attack 1 year into the strip and it was taken over by another artist, but later than the pages reprinted here. Pussycat Princess is the princess of Tabbyland, and outside the royal family, she has some unusual servants like a cat poet and a police cat. They sometimes kind of have adventures, and but it's not really a continuing adventure type strip, but it's not a gag strip either. It just sort of exists to look cute on the page. I don't know which pages exactly were reprinted in Ace Comics number 13, so here's just a random example of this strip. Enjoy. Number 31, The Funnies number 19, Bronc Peeler. Fred Harmon was a Colorado ranch hand with a talent for art and drawing the West who decided in 1933 to make his fortune by creating his own comic strip. But he did things differently than most. Instead of finding a syndicate to sell his strip to, he found his own newspapers to carry the strip and managed his own career. Almost entirely they were local newspapers out west. Now, this eventually got the attention of a syndicate that was willing to offer him wider distribution, and this happened just the previous year, 1937. The name itself displays Harmon's bona fides with ranch life. In ranch slang, a bronc was an untamed horse, and a peeler was someone who tamed horses, so bronc peeler just means horse tamer, and is likely Bronc's nickname instead of his real name, which means that we never actually learn his real name. The art also displays Harmon's familiarity with the subject matter, and while his figure work is decent, what he excels at are the backgrounds, the rich, lush landscapes he renders. Almost every panel has something in the background at least as interesting as the story. In this issue, Bronc and his sidekick, Coyote Pete, have just returned home from an adventure in Mexico when Bronc learns that a rash of stagecoach robberies, and today's stagecoach is being driven by the cousin of Bronc's sweetheart, Babs Dalton. To protect the cousin, Bronc tails the stagecoach, only to discover that cousin Larry is actually working with the stagecoach robber. This plays out over the 2 pages of space that Bronc gets in the Funnies per issue. Coyote Pete, incidentally, won't last long as Bronc's sidekick, soon replaced by an adopted Native American youth named Little Beaver, who will last longer in comics than Bronc does, but that story will have to wait for another episode. Number 30, Funny Pages, Volume 2, Number 7, Missing Links. At the beginning of Centaur Comics, they are relying entirely on the Chesler Studio for content. So not much good to discuss here. Some art styles do appeal to me more than others, and certain ones, like Dick Ryan's, grates on me like nails on a chalkboard. This is Missing Links, an ongoing gag feature where all these apes, who are actually brilliant professors, go around the world seeking out other signs of intelligent life and are aghast at everything they encounter. It's cloyingly condescending social commentary like this. Well, the issue I'm about to show you is actually from the feature I'm about to show you is from 2 issues earlier, because I don't have a sample from number 7. That one's not online yet. So in number 5, our ape scholars visit a poor farm, and this, at least in this case, gave me the opportunity to look up what a poor farm is, because I didn't know. And this is particularly timely these days, with Republicans always looking for ways to sabotage Social Security. Before the Social Security Act went into effect in 1935, old people who could no longer support themselves and did not have children willing to support them would be shipped off to poorhouses, often located on poor farms in rural areas. Anyone still able-bodied was forced to work these farms until they were too infirm to continue. Social Security gave out resources that paid for better care and gradually over time replaced these entirely, so that by the end of the 1940s, poor farms were gone for, well, until now at least. Now, that doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong with Social Security. There is still room for improvement. What it gives us right now are nursing homes, which have their problems, but it's definitely better than poor farms. As Missing Links tells us. I have a cat talking over here. I don't know if you can hear Lois. Number 29, Funny Picture Stories, Volume 2, Number 7, Phony Crimes. An unnamed detective is called to investigate a kidnapping, or so the mom thinks, because her young son has been missing for 3 hours. She suspects the maid that she discharged for whipping her son is responsible, and this is 1938, so yeah, this is probably a common thing. The maid seems to have plenty of motive, so the detective decides that he's going to arrest her, just as the son comes home from the movies. The newspapers call him the Phony Detective after this, a name that will stick in this character's subsequent appearances, which are, I think, 3 issues. The artist is Paul Gustafsson, and you're going to be hearing that name a lot from me in the future. Carl Paul Gustafsson was born in Finland, but his parents immigrated to the US when he was just 5. At the age of 17, he started assisting a cartoonist working for the magazine Collier's, and at the age of 19, briefly had his own syndicated strip called Jasper. Late in 1937, he started working for Chesler Studio. Paul was a flexible artist, so he did cartoony style like this, but he also could do realistic art like he was doing at the same time on another feature, which we haven't talked about yet, but probably should, The Arrow. And we'll be talking about other features in the near future, The Phantom of the Fair, and The Angel, and The Human Bomb. Number 28, Star Comics number 11, Topsy-Turvy. Topsy-Turvy, the adventurous, using that term loosely, of 2 cherub-like children in a fantasy land where everything looks crazy, was actually a fairly long-lasting strip for Star Comics, running 15 straight issues. The style is deliberately made to look like a reprint from a Big Little book, with narration under each panel, but this isn't the case. This is original material from the Chesler Studio. The art style is deliberately cartoonier than the artist's regular style, just like Paul Gustafson on Phony Crimes, but this time we're not entirely sure who the artist is. Someone on the Grand Comics database thinks this was done by Clem Gretter, who you may recall from the feature Don Drake on the Planet Sorrow, though to my eye this is Charles Byro, who is mainly doing cover art for Chesler at this point, but will go on to create Airboy, work extensively on the Golden Age Daredevil, and also create two of my favorite Golden Age heroes, Steel Sterling and Crime Buster, and I just ran out of time. I have to leave for work. So, bye for now.